I'm at Sunrise Ridge, which is west of Long, Elwell, and Twitchell. And this is Mount Abrams off to my left, mountains, where the turbines will all be set across the top of those mountains. That's looking east. Paradise Road, Bethel, looking at Mount Abrams, and then to the right, Tibbetts, Elwell, and the beginning of Long Mountains. Looking west, Mount Abrams at the right, coming across to Tibbetts, looking back at Long and Ewell. The view from Greenwood Road of Tibbetts Mountain. This is taken from the corner of Greenwood Road and Cole Road. Here is a view of Tibbetts Mountain, taken from the middle of the Twitchell Pond, and then broadening it out, going over onto Elwell. The Cole Farm is at the base of Tibbetts. There's Long, and there's Elwell. They're within a little over 3,000 feet from the mountain, from where these turbines will be coming.
Welcome, Mr. Allen. Have a seat. That's right. Gentlemen, call to order the meeting of, I don't know which one it is. It's way up there. Right?
275th.
Of the Ordinance Review Committee for the town of Greenwood. We have a full house tonight. All of the committee members are here, which is a good thing. Thank you for being here. All right. As in the past, ladies and gentlemen, we have comments from the citizens. I talked to them about it. We have comments from the citizens. 10 minutes. Anyone want to comment? Please raise your hand so we can divide into the 10 minutes. No comments from the citizens tonight? Oh, one. Okay. You have 10 minutes, Jill?
I don't need 10 minutes.
Okay.
I went through all the documents that I have, and lucky you guys only have a couple questions. One is on this, sorry about that, the site plan review ordinance. I guess this is the existing one, is that correct?
Site plan review, yes.
Okay, so in that, there's a page 26, and it talks about, I know this is in the past, but shadow, flicker, blade.
Yep.
Is that included in this current ordinance? Secondly,
You mean changes?
or this existing page 26 that says about the limits of time?
Right, the 8 hours for a year.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that in the existing ordinance? Okay, and where can I get a copy of where the existing ordinance is now with all the corrections and changes? Is there a place to access that? Because the complete thing from start to finish? Because I don't know.
We are doing this as we go along.
Yeah, I get sections of it. Is there a place where we can see the whole thing?
This is the whole thing.
This is it.
That's it.
The changes now, you gotta remember, these are the changes.
Right.
You've got that document, these are the changes to the existing sections of the wind power part of that document. Remember, wind power is a subsection of site plan review.
Okay.
It's specific to wind power.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if there was a whole thing that I was missing. I've seen all
Nope.
the changes, but not. Okay. And then the rest of the stuff is just within regard to what we're going to discuss today with the Montville thing. I think that's very, very well written and already reviewed by lawyers, so I like that. And then I had a question on this also that was given out to us at one point called the 145th Maine Legislature. It was an act, but I don't know if it was ever approved or.
It was never approved.
Okay.
It was,
Never came out.
Yeah, never was.
because it said what not to pass.
No, not in the day, I'm home.
And it didn't.
It came out of the hearing, but it never went to,
Oh, okay, all right. Well, it came out of a hearing according to what Dennis says, and I don't know exactly, but it came out, and I do remember reading the wording, it said ought not to pass.
Right.
Okay, because it has a lot of verbiage regarding what we're gonna discuss tonight.
Exactly.
Okay, all right,
Exactly.
I think that might be it, thank you.
Say again?
That might be it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee members, 10 minutes, anybody? Nobody wants to speak tonight? Okay, let's get on with the meeting so we can adjourn. Review the minutes of April the 5th. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Minutes of April 5th are now approved. Okay, the changes submitted by John Maloney, who is not here this evening. I think what we need to do is quickly look at that. I've gone through this a couple of times. And I believe we have the latest info in the changes. We've gone back to 2 years. And the area that you
Yep.
suggested for the permit extension?
Yep.
And I don't think there were many more changes.
No, I don't think so, right?
Entertain a motion to approve John Maloney's revisions to the wind power section. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay. Now, item 6 is PDG, and review the response from the town attorney. Anybody wish to start a discussion on PVG? We had a discussion last meeting. It revolved around confusing the voters. It was felt, I believe, by the committee that confusing the voters would not be in the best interest of the work of the committee. So we have a couple of things that we can do. We can look at.
One of the things we talked about, I believe, was having this be something that would be part of the permit process. If someone decides to come to the planning board and is looking for, permission to do a wind farm, that this would be part of that process, that they would need to definitely have some kind of an agreement with the abutters to the property where the wind farm would go. And that being just having it be part of that permit process, I think is what we talked about. As opposed to having it be something that's like, that we've written down and sort of tried to, nickel and dime it, in the ordinance itself.
A legal
Yeah.
document. What I did was I went ahead and thought about this long and hard. I came up with a bunch of words. Hopefully we can discuss these. Maybe somebody make it in the form of a motion, or I will. And the whole objective here was to make it as simplistic, understandable as possible. And yet, respect the fact that PVG should be considered in the ordinance.
Larry? Just give a definition of PPG.
PVG, property value guarantee. So I'll read my words, very brief. A property value guarantee, the PVG, agreement must be obtained in writing between the company requesting a permit for a commercial wind facility called the CWF and property owners within, and then we can decide 1,000, 2,000 feet of the commercial wind facility property line. It's a piece of property. The wind towers will be somewhere in the property. This is the property line, 1,000 to 2,000 feet from it. The application fee, the company must provide a complete list of the above property owners in order for the permit application to be approved. So somebody comes in for a permit application, they know exactly where they're gonna put whatever they're gonna put up. They have a property line, measured 1,000 to 2,000 feet, we decide that, and then they have to come up with a list of property owners. The application fee must be sufficient to cover all costs associated with the PVG, such as appraisal fees and legal fees if necessary. Any property owner on the list may elect to refuse to participate in the PVG, but must do so in writing. The select board will provide a list of appraisers. Now we bring the select board into the mix. And real estate attorneys for property owners to choose from that will be paid by the town from the application fee money. Any property owner on the list may elect to hire and pay their own appraiser or lawyer. A permit, this is now, the permitting process starts. The application fee has been approved, the permitting process starts, and a permit cannot be granted for a commercial wind facility until the PVG process is completed in writing for each property owner within the 1,000, 2,000 feet of the CWF property line. What that does, ladies and gentlemen, is it takes this legal wording away from the ordinance. Because when you put that into the ordinance, and we have experience in this town, when you confuse voters with a lot of legal detail, they basically say, no, I don't want anything to do with that. And what we do not want to do, I don't believe, is all this work that we've done to this point, have it kind of blow up because of legal mumbo jumbo. So I throw that out as a possibility. We can discuss it, we can rip it apart. Yes, sir.
1,000 to 2,000 feet doesn't sound like very much to me.
Well, our current, the way we have the ordinance written to go to the voters, I mean, that, the 1,000, 2,000 feet wouldn't even be really, I mean, it's a mile per 100 feet anyways.
That's not,
So,
that's
yeah.
from the property line, remember.
Which,
The property line is, this is the property, this is, say, 20,000 acres. This is the property line. Now, we have a setback of a mile in from the property line. Okay?
You know, our,
So our wind facility would be well back from the property line, and then we take 1,000 to 2,000 feet from it
Beyond
out.
that.
And those are the folks that would be, quote, closest to, and if the wind facility companies have no problem with degradation in value of property, this should be moot for them. It shouldn't be any issue. But what we have now done is we put that into the mix and provide something for property owners who are going to be abutters to the property. So 1,000 feet should be more than sufficient. It's kind of a big buffer. We want to go to 2,000, we can do that. It's just a bigger buffer.
we have it right now as written as, if it's 100 feet tall, it's already gotta have a mile setback.
That's right.
That's 5,280 feet.
Well, that has nothing to do with this. This is from the property line
That's
out,
a lost where. But
okay?
yeah, but that from that property line, they still have to be a mile to the nearest.
They've gotta be in that way. So if they are a mile, or 2 miles, then they're gonna be, 10,000 feet from this property line to a wind tower.
Right.
So a person 1,000 is gonna be 11,000 feet away.
Yeah, okay. No, that wouldn't, not the way our ordinance is written. I'm kind of confused. I don't know what else
Go ahead.
Because we already have it, so from a non-participating land, from the line, the property line, so that's the end of the commercial wind facility.
Right.
And they put up a 100-foot tower anywhere into here, doesn't matter where. It still has to be a mile at 100 feet from that, so the 1,000, 2,000 feet
It has to
is
be what?
irrelevant.
What?
If a tower is 100 feet tall, as our ordinance is written,
Correct.
it's gotta be a mile.
Mile in.
No,
From
from property
here.
line to the, not from the tower to the property line.
No, it's
Yes.
from the way our ordinance is written, I
Yes, it
believe
is.
it's from the structure,
To the property.
base of the structure to a mile, a mile per 100 feet to the
Okay,
next property line. Isn't that how we wrote that?
Right,
But it's-
exactly.
Yeah, so.
I don't want you to be confused.
No, I get it now, but
Be
still the
unconfused.
footage, yeah.
I think the purpose of this particular thing, and, you know, we could argue the 1,000 to 2,000 feet or anything. This is basically for, property value guarantee. So we're saying that from the property line of the proposed commercial wind facility, then anybody who is like within 1,000 feet of that, they would have to have this document. They would have to have either agreed or waived this particular document
Later.
on the value.
We gotta discuss this.
Well, I think if anything, I mean, where we're at with this, I mean, this would be something I suggest that maybe we send it to the lawyer to have his opinion on it, because I really, this is a really muddy topic that I don't know. I mean, this avoids
What
a
you
lot of-
understand?
No, I
Let's
understand it all.
get-
This avoids a lot of the legal terminology with it, but I still have some questions about it
Right.
and think about it a little bit more. But I think this is something we should turn to the attorney for help for. If this is something that we would consider.
This is one of the things I wanted to avoid, only because we go to the attorney, we're gonna be meeting a lot longer than we want.
But the attorney's already made a decision on this. So you can send this with 1 foot or 1,000 feet or a mile. And I think the distance is irrelevant. The attorney, did they already come back and say that this would not stand up? So I understand the
When
concept.
did the attorney say that the PVG wouldn't stand up?
I don't know that he said that, but and you mean in the letter it kind of questioned the
Right.
validity of the process.
Right.
But we do have 3 other communities that have put this in an ordinance, right? I think that's what the email said. Well, thank you. I mean, I just want to say thanks, Larry, for writing that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I mean, I guess the question is, or the thought would be that, yeah, if the ordinance passes, then it's a moot issue, right? Is that, but, because there wouldn't be any turbines.
Right, because the response from the lawyer said, further, the whole concept of zoning and land use planning is that the government does not pay for any impacts that such ordinances might have on your property value unless the result of the regulation is that your property has no economic value left. I can't conceive of requiring a government to pay for the general effects of reasonable regulation or development on property values or transferring such an obligation to the developer.
Yeah, that's what they said.
That's from the attorney.
Yeah, that was, I can't read his name right.
I can't
That's
see
the
any
case.
harm in including it the way it's written. with
If
the-
that's
Right.
the case, how did Montville's get passed?
well, it's a different state too, but that's where I was trying to throw out, like, I
No,
think.
it's Maine.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm thinking of the,
Yeah.
or maybe they had a different attorney, obviously.
Yeah.
But, that's what I was saying, then maybe putting this to the lawyer, what you have written here, for an idea of what, being that where his opinion, what we already discussed this, was that maybe isn't a great idea. I mean, that's the only thing I can suggest with this, because I kind of feel with the attorney on this one, this is a very muddy subject to be putting into the ordinance, especially trying to explain to people, what the definition of a property value guarantee is too, without really reading into it. I think it's a really tough subject, so I mean, this is a nice piece that you've written, it's more than what I would have come up with, that's why I'm saying, why don't we throw this to him and get his opinion on this before our next meeting?
I don't think we're gonna be able to do that, but I guess we can do that if you wanna do that. Do you think he would be able to come back with
Sure.
an answer on this?
We pay him, he'll come back with something.
He will. Since we pay him, huh?
So can we go,
Yes.
we go on a little different tack?
Sure.
Different subject on this, okay. I'm not sure the select board wants to provide a list of appraisers.
Hmm?
I'm not sure that's a select board, Ernie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the select board wants to put themselves in that position of saying you and you are good, you and you are bad. I think that would be I think as a select board person, that would be a real challenge to be able to, I'm sure there's an association of appraisers within the state of Maine. You can word it that way, however that works out.
A state licensed appraiser,
State license appraiser.
right?
Because I just can see where that and the real estate attorneys, I don't know if the select board wants to do that. Maybe you want to,
No,
but I can see that as being a
Well,
stumbling block.
I'm just wondering if the appropriate person would be the assessor. I mean, the town uses an assessor to assess everybody's property value.
Well, the assessor and the appraiser kind of take different
They do.
tacks. Yeah, you know, they take different tacks, so.
Appraiser goes in the house, the assessor is an external.
Yeah,
appraiser.
An appraiser will basically come in, look at the house, and then they'll do a comparable based on X properties that have sold in the area for a typical or a similar property. That's how you would get that assessment, that appraisal. The assessment's a completely different animal.
Yeah, it's square
So-
footage, volume, that sort of stuff. It's all.
I know the assessor wanted to go in my house when he came
Well,
to
I know,
check my
but
property.
you don't have to
so-
let him in, that's the other
They're
issue.
just different animals. They're different.
They are very different.
So-
Very different.
so-
Well, we can certainly do that, and that's why I put it out here, let's
Yeah.
discuss it.
Kim, the way I understand this, Montville did not have any legal
Challenge.
or any, well,
Or
they didn't
there's
consult
no
a
one-
lawyer when they did this. It looked to me like they had got their information from the surrounding towns.
Right.
So we don't know if the surrounding towns had a lawyer help them. I think my own thought on this is that, to start with, that we not put it in the ordinance. And we submit the ordinance to the voters without property value guarantees in it.
Okay.
And then, if it is rejected because of reasons that they would like to see the ordinance be more liberal, like expanding the height or decreasing the setback, if that type of thing happened, and if it comes back to us the second time, and we can see that the probability of these turbines being built in Greenwood, now I would say that we need that type of protection. So if we have to come back a second time, then we add it to the ordinance. But the first time, we go at it without it. That's just something for discussion. And secondly, or thirdly, or whatever it is, I can't even keep track of myself. I don't see how we can do this. As I said 2 weeks ago, I don't see how we can do it and not have it be in the ordinance itself. If I was in question worried about my property value, but like, I know that there's some money that's gonna come back to the town, Well, if somebody gives me a guarantee that my property can't be devalued by these turbines, and at the same time, I'm gonna see some benefit coming into the town from the turbines, well, I may just say, yeah, I'm good with that, let's let the turbines come in, because like my property, I can't get hurt. And the only way we can guarantee that is if we put it in the ordinance itself. If it's a separate item, then it comes back to what I was just talking about. Somebody can say, you know, I can't lose on this. So the only way I can see to do it is to have it in the ordinance if we do it at all. And I'm through.
This would be in the ordinance.
Or
So
you're saying,
then it's in the ordinance, in essence.
But I would like to go
So your approach is
To go
not
the
do it
first time
now.
without it.
What we present to the
Right.
town is sans this.
That's
And
something.
then,
for us to
and
discuss.
then put something in if it's rejected. Now, the downside to your argument, I think, because I don't believe we know where we are, either as a town, it's just all new territory, new charter. If it's rejected, what's next? Because I think the select board now, and I believe they have the time, but they have a decision to make, and that is send it back to us and keep this board as it is, appoint a new board.
That's the impression that I got, that would happen.
But,
is
That it
that,
would come back to us to revisit it.
but that's not guaranteed, because the select board could do either.
I guess, I don't know.
Can we get a ruling on that, Ken?
We only have one selectman in the room.
And it would take the three of them to decide that issue.
Yeah.
And then would the attorney have to weigh in?
Well, I think if we were gonna even do this, that I wanna do it under the direction of an attorney, so that we're doing something that's legal.
Okay. Maybe we could ask for an opinion on that subject, what happens? And then, if they reject it, can we say, I don't know how we write this up even, can we say that if you are going to vote against this review committee recommendations, why?
Okay, can we suggest a public hearing?
And then,
I would
what are you
think
gonna
that would become evident when we hold the hearing. We're gonna find out what the opposition is to what we've done at the hearing before we even vote on this.
Well, I'm sure, but again, you still have the issue of why.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying, is that we will know why after we have a hearing and discuss this, and both sides get to talk about what the issues are.
What do you think?
well, I think that's a valid point that he's bringing up, where it's like if people feel like their property is gonna be paid for either way, then they're going to not really value the importance of the situation. I don't know that anyone would do that, but perhaps. I don't know, I guess I feel like we need to ask the lawyer, because I don't know that that's incredibly well written and simple, but maybe not complicated enough to protect us. I don't know. So I think asking
like
is
that.
a good idea. And then we can take it from there. I can see how, because the ordinance is so protective, we don't actually need this, but if we were to have it on the table again and we're making adjustments, then this might be totally tantamount at that point.
If we're the committee.
Well, hopefully any other committee would take everything that we've done, right, and have all this work in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
you would think.
Gentlemen?
My opinion is I'm not sure if it's legal, right? So
Okay.
that you gotta, whatever the concept is, you would wanna make sure that it would withstand that, right? Because that's one of the biggest issues that I fear going forward. Is
This or just PVG?
that, PVG and everything else. I mean,
Okay.
they have to, the lawyers are gonna look at it and go through it and tell us what works and what's not. I think if it's a if they can, and I would ask them to write the PVG, that's not really, the intent is right here. If it is legal, what would give some sort of protection, and they can come up with some language, because none of us are lawyers, and I'm assuming that any PVG that is done, if it is legal, is pretty complicated, right? I mean, I just think of all the scenarios where we're guaranteeing some sort of a price on your property, and what happens if another property comes in next to you that devalues your property, but you've got the guarantee in place. I mean, there's so many scenarios you can come up with that would
Exactly.
eschew that, but assuming that the lawyers can figure it out, it becomes I think, to Jesse's point, it's a real way for anybody that's looking at this new amendment to say, wow, at least I know my property is gonna be guaranteed, and that's one of the big issues. So, I mean, so it is a good thing. People will, if it's simple and it's explained properly, people would be excited by that, I would think, right? I know that, hey, I know I would be, right? So my property's protected, and that's a good thing. I just don't, I question the legality of it and how they would do it, because I don't see, in my mind, how that works, but if the lawyers say they can do it, it's to everybody's, it's a benefit. I think anybody applying would, I mean, it just would be really difficult to do. So I have a question on process. We submit the final version to the select board,
Yes,
and
and
then,
then they hit it through the attorney and say,
They
is
send
this
it to-
okay?
and then does the select board, do they modify it, change it,
If the attorney,
or can
I
they,
think
do they
the
have
attorney has to
does
send
the-
it back to us.
But does the select board have full discretion on saying, well, we're gonna change this, we're gonna change that?
No.
I don't believe so.
You know?
But, I
They
would say
hired
no.
us to
I'm
do
sorry,
that.
I shouldn't say no. The normal process would be, when we get done, it goes to the select board. The select board kicks it to the lawyer. The lawyer kicks it back to the select board saying, this, and this is good, this, and this isn't. And the select board then sends it, but typically, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but typically, the select board will then send it back to the committee to say, okay, this is what legal says, clean it up. And then it would then go back to the attorney again
For a final,
for a
Yeah.
fine.
and then the select board sets a hearing.
And if the attorney says, everything looks good to me, then it goes
Goes
to
right ahead.
the voters.
Goes
It
up
goes
to a
public-
hearing.
It goes to public hearing.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
And the
then a
public
vote.
hearing is a different day than the vote, because the vote is for the
Absolutely,
rest of
absolutely.
the town's vote,
Mhm.
Has to be.
day, whatever. Okay.
And when we have a big project on the site review ordinance,
Yeah,
that happens as well.
okay,
So that's why one of the other reasons we folded this into the site plan review. To make it as clean as possible as far as that's concerned.
I'm guessing that this is very simple and kind of get some of our intent down. I'm assuming the lawyers would come back with something a little more substantial if you.
Well, here's the,
they're gonna have to put
I
in.
agree. As far as the ordinance is concerned, I felt that this, being as simplistic as possible, makes it easy to understand. And then when it gets into that real legal stuff that you're talking about, and it definitely is there, because all those things are possible. The agreement is between the property owner and the company. And that legal thing could take a while, of course, to get resolved. And then you have the opt-out, because as Brad was saying, some people would be and some people wouldn't be concerned. And if they vote for the mile per 100 feet back, now they're quite far away, not a problem for me, I don't see a problem with that. And then there would be others that are closer and they would have other issues. And as far as the company is concerned, they've already declared themselves that there is no problem. There is no degradation in the value of the property.
They did say.
And so, the legal aspect would be when the property goes up for sale, and I think we've heard from several real estate brokers, or at least one that I know of, where they had 3 or 4 clients looking for property in the area, and as soon as they heard that the possibility of wind towers being erected, they said, well, look elsewhere. That's another metric that you have to deal with. We're dealing with a lot of unknowns. And it's not easy to write any rules about unknowns. It's just too tough. You can't cover the bases and you're gonna be challenged, for sure. So this is a start, and so Kenny, if you would, present that to the attorney and also present to the attorney a question about what happens if at the hearing we get the sense that,
We have to take a vote on that, don't we?
just to give it to the attorney and then come back to it, we can table this. We don't need to vote on it tonight. We can table this and bring it back again. If this looks like it's sensible, if the attorney says you're crazy, then we'll have to deal with it. But
I mean, why don't you just send it to the attorney as a concept?
yeah,
Just send it to the attorney as a concept. Then
this is
you're
what
gonna
we're
get-
thinking.
he
What
does.
do you think?
Because, I mean, obviously, there are things, like I brought up with the select board, there are things that are gonna have to be changed anyway. So let's get the concept done, see if there's any legality challenge to it, and then we can move on. How many
Because
more
we
meetings
could
do
be in the
want to have?
weeds for a lot more meetings, and I don't know about you guys.
So this is basically just an outline.
Exactly.
Just an idea.
Yeah, it's an idea, it's a concept.
And they would return to us, if it is legal, some sort of
Right.
outline that we could
Right.
review. and-
So Kim, you'll just couch it that way, this is just a basic general
Yeah.
concept, no final wording. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Everybody okay with that? Now we got the next thorny issue, and that's health. How do we deal with that one? Because I don't think we're in any different minefield. It's just as difficult.
Can we go back to what I said about not putting that into the ordinance to start with, and then put it in if we have to, you know, if we have to make some changes to the ordinance, then put the property value guarantee in there. I personally had just as soon not have the property value guarantee in
Okay.
the original one that we set forth to the voters.
And we can do that once it comes back to us with the suggestions of the attorney, be guided by those, because he might be giving us enough information to say, absolutely, that's the thing to do. We'll worry about this at a later date, when as and if we have the votes.
We have to
Brad,
vote
in
on it
your,
anyway.
in your scenario, do we spend the money now, or do we spend the money later? I mean, we wanna, I mean, I don't know where we are budget-wise with legal fees, but I'm sure that will come up at our budget meeting there on the 25th, but I'm sure they're gathering.
So we,
Some
at this
steam,
point,
so-
so I get this straight, at this point, we don't know if we're gonna have it in the first document that we send to the voters.
Right now, no, we'd have to vote
Absolutely
on
not.
it, we'd have to vote on it
Okay.
either way if we're
No,
gonna
no,
put it in
no,
there or not.
we have to wait till the attorney comes back and says to us something.
Here's
You
how
guys
you,
are crazy?
here's how you do a PVG,
Right.
this is what we would recommend.
Would not recommend
No
the
way to do it.
PVG, might be agreeing with you.
Well, I'm not saying entirely that we shouldn't have property value guarantees. I'm just saying, I don't think we need them the way that this ordinance is written for the first time that we submit it. I don't think we need the property value guarantees.
Okay.
I think that's what Tyler was alluding to, is that we're really, even at that number, we're talking about direct abutters and whether they're impacted or not, so.
And I think,
I see what you're saying.
and I think the same, I just feel like the same thing is true of the
Health?
health, human health effects. I think that, you know, if we, if we have written and made the changes to the ordinance the way that we have, then I think we're protecting ourselves and our landowners, our taxpayers. If it doesn't pass, and you come back and people want, you know, different things, they want taller towers, they want, you know, this or that or the other, shorter setbacks or whatever, then you go back and you say, well, if you're gonna do that, then, you know, you're gonna have these things too, because it's gonna affect people. But at this point, I think it's important that we put something to the voters that they can understand. and understand the work that we've done and why we've made the decisions that we've made and why we voted the way we have voted and why we've made the changes. It's to protect property owners, you know, whether you live in Pennsylvania or Idaho or wherever wherever you vote, you know, you still own property here. And that's our job, is to look out for the property owners who live in our town. That's what we were taxed with. And that's why we've made the decisions that we've made. And I think it's important for us to make sure that people understand that. I'm done.
The only thing on the health effects, I mean, I think any individual that's adversely impacted by this, and I think that we've taken a lot of steps to prevent that. So what you were saying,
Absolutely.
I think absolutely. But let's say something doesn't, and then, you know, I think any individual has the right to, you know, go after anybody creating an adverse health impact on them.
And
And that was the issue.
the whole stickiness about the health things is it is so subjective. It's so incredibly subjective, you know?
Lawyer versus lawyer.
Yeah, lawyer against
Yeah, I'm saying,
lawyer
like,
and.
what doctor makes the validity of the
Yeah,
claim,
and who
where,
said you
know.
didn't have headaches before they went up, you know? It's too sticky for, I think, this board to even think that we would have the knowledge and the wherewithal to like put something in writing that we could like have it stand up anywhere. I just don't think we can do it. I'm sorry for those of you who would like to see it there, but I don't think we can do
I
it.
think even if we were able to do the health effect part of it, my thing too is how much money do you put in escrow for this? Health costs and, you know, what they are, and different, you know, tests and whatever, medications. I mean, the range of prices for these things, you know, thousands, and it could be astronomical. One person's bill could be. I mean, you could wipe out an escrow account with one person. You know, like how do we maintain that? How do they adjust it every year? You know how we do it with like the decommissioning part of it. You know, that's adjusted however many years we decided for that. How would you do that for the health stuff? You know.
And I think we're trying to address all of those things with the recommendations that we're putting to the selectmen with what we voted on as far as like, you know, height limitations and distance and setbacks and things like that. These are things that we're trying to do, which are actually the first steps that you need to do to look out for these other things that everybody wants to, you know.
It's like, as I read back through the town of Phillips ordinance today and what they had done, and they discussed a lot of the health effects of flicker or shoot, things like that. They discussed it, but I think they did the same thing that we're doing. They went off the World Health Organization's recommended setbacks, you know, the facts that we have, the scientific evidence, the professional presentations we had. They discussed it in it, but they didn't put anything to do with, you know, with the property values, the money for health stuff, things like that. But it was discussed in theirs, and again, I think it's the same thing. I think it's just what we have here is sufficient enough to prevent those things from actually ever happening and getting to that point.
Anybody else have any?
You know, honestly, with the work that's been done, with the suggestions that have been made, the votes that have been taken, I think you could take and submit what we've done already and call it good. I don't think anything else needs to be added on to it. I think the setbacks, the height limitations, the sound limitations, those address 95% of anybody's issues other than purely view. And we've been at this thing too long. All we're doing is muddying the waters from this point on. Finish it up, give it to the select board, let them do their thing. If there needs to be some changes made, make some changes, but you know, this seems like spinning wheels.
Well, should we entertain a motion to either table or stop discussion on health and then wait for the PEG thing to come back and then put that to bed at our next meeting? And hopefully wrap up at the next meeting any loose ends. Hopefully John can be here and give us some guidance on what else needs to be done from our perspective. And then turn it over to the,
I don't see, other than subcommittee,
well, that's our next thing on
Adding
the
on.
agenda.
John doesn't have a whole lot more to cover.
Yeah, right.
I think John's done all of the, hasn't he
He's-
done
he's up to date.
everything? He's
I'm
up
pretty
to
sure he's
date
up to
with
date.
everything that we, made. I
All
think
the things that
there's
we've,
that we approved, we just voted on and approved.
I'll make a motion that we leave item 7, the escrow account being the health effects, although I think we should end the discussion here. I don't think we should table it.
okay,
I would second that.
okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Okay, so we have a unanimous, we'll, at this point, leave out the health, addressing the health issues in the ordinance. If things change, comes back to us, as Brad said, may reconsider it depending on the change. Okay, you're up, Mr. Chairman.
You have all of my information, what we did last time. Anybody have any suggestions, changes, edits, additions? This is easy.
And is this your guys?
This
That's
is
right.
the facts and findings.
Biography.
What
I
is
think a
that?
lot of this we can thank all you folks for, because
The facts and finding is this piece.
Yes,
this
yes,
case-
but is
And
that
that's-
something you guys made?
That's all of the things that we have based our decisions were based on those, papers that we were either presented, we read,
Okay.
we evaluated.
this is for the attorney to refer to.
But if there should be a challenge to this, we have gone in more detail. I know what I see is
It's a lot more list of
a
stuff
lot
too.
more than what we have here.
Yep.
Okay.
Is this going to be part of this?
Yes,
Okay, okay. I think that's good. Yeah.
So you want,
Yeah.
when, in our last meeting, you said you're gonna take out all the references on this?
On the bottom, I was gonna, that's what we did with the bibliography instead.
So how do you justify what the top part is if you don't have references? I mean, if the town should be legally challenged, how do you do that?
We can make references, but I feel like if we put a list of references, I could put all of the stuff that we've gone through for majority of it. I mean, what's in the bibliography is what a lot of it, it'll overlap itself too. So I mean, I can go down and put what we have in the bibliography at the bottom of each one of these pages if you want to make the reference, or I can make it direct in what we're writing, you know what I mean? Some of the information overlaps, like some of the noise stuff, I mean, I could put a reference at the end of each noise piece and put each presentation and all that too, or we could put it at the end of it, we could put it within the wording of it, or I can put it at the end like we kinda have it there. If you wanna make direct references, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is so overlapping that it's very hard to, I can make a list on each one.
But some of these conclusions aren't even correct.
Okay.
So let's just take decommissioning. It says in our ordinance, we have outlined decommissioning funds will be put in escrow. That's not what's in the ordinance. What's in the ordinance is in the section 1-701-3-75, it says the funds have been posted by the applicant or the bonding company or a federal or state chartered lending institute. The escrow agent authorized to conduct business in the state of Maine, etc. So what this is saying is that XYZ company would have to put funds directly into it, and that's not what the ordinance is saying.
So you would like that to just say to be posted?
You have to
Bond
put, you have
or
to
in
put the
escrow?
wording that's in the ordinance, you have to put that in there. 'Cause
Okay.
those are two
Take
completely
escrow
different.
Okay, we
Escrow
can
out,
make
so
that,
out.
we can make that change easy enough.
That's good. Good thought.
Cause that's gonna be. So under certain things like noise control, how would the committee be able to defend its position when, or let's say the 25 and the 35 dBA, when Mike Betharian actually congratulated the state of Maine for the regulations that they put in. He also had a setback, I think, of a half a mile, was a minimum of half a mile was his recommendation. I mean, where he says, he presented to the board,
Right, that's what he
that half a
presented.
mile from the T, from the half a mile from the tower, DBA level would be at 32 DBA.
Right, so if, I mean, we can take exactly what he said and put that into our ordinance, or we can take what we felt was suggested by both of them, Stephen Ambrose and Darian, and make it kind of a in-between, which is what we decided as a board, where those numbers 25 and 35.
That's what we voted
But the
on.
Right.
20, I understand, no, I understand, but the 25 and the 35 are the quote unquote, those are the ambient sound levels without anything going on, nothing. I mean, as Mike Betharian said, it's without insects, it's without any, no road noise, no nothing. Those are the noise levels that they presented to the committee. And so basically what you're saying in the recommendations is that those ambience, nothing, that a commercial wind energy facility can't exceed those ambient sound levels, and that's absolutely impossible.
I don't remember him saying that those are the ambient sound levels. The ambient sound levels have yet to be determined. Nobody has any idea what the ambient sound levels are at the
That was
property
the
levels.
that was the World Health Organization recommendations,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
So maybe we just add the World Health Organizations into the writing somewhere, like add
As a
those as the
reference.
references, and then put it maybe with,
All I'm
the
saying is you
ORC
gotta
was
reference
able to have
something, you
two
need to
sound
reference it. You
professionals,
can't-
and then say, both sound professionals recommended using the standards of the World Health Organization, which are, or something? Does that make more
But-
sense? Because they did do that,
Yes, they did.
What,
you know? Like, we can look at the presentations again, but I'm pretty sure that that's how we got those
I
numbers.
think what you're gonna find is that both of the engineers said that in rural western Maine, the ambient sound levels at night was 25 and during the day was 35.
disagree 100%. I'm sorry, that was never, ever discussed.
Look at it.
They never said anything about ambient sound. They said it should be measured. That's all they said. They never said what it was. And they can't say what it is.
But I think this highlights the point of we're making statements and we're just blanket referencing.
Right.
And there's a lot of references in, so I think you'll be able to find those references in, contrary to those references in some of those documents. Right? And
Yeah, I mean,
I know the World
right,
Health,
and that's
the World
why-
Health was one of our big,
Right, so if that's, and again, that's why I gave this to you guys 2 weeks ago, so if we could go over this stuff and determine that if these things weren't correct or incorrect or edits that need to be done, then that's where, like, if these are correct, we wrote here about how it's, they both of them considered it to be a rural area, if these numbers weren't right, then no, the correction numbers, that's fine, I haven't gone back and check myself over on that, so.
I don't have either of those sound presentations with me or my notes, but I'll totally look at them because I feel like that's there. But I feel like arguing about it till we've all reread it is maybe.
Well, no, I mean, that's fine, if there's a change that needs to be made, then I just need to know the numbers or where we made the incorrect reference,
Right.
and that's where, I mean, let's talk about the reference for it.
And so, Dennis, are you and Rob, are you guys saying that we should do like direct citations?
Right,
Is that
that's-
what you're requesting?
I'm just raising the point that we have a discrepancy within the board.
So what's the problem?
I can't imagine, I personally can't imagine going back and making personal citations for everything, but there is conflicting information within the bibliography, within the citations. And so when someone's looking at this, they're gonna say, well, you've made reference to this, and then I'm assuming a lawyer who would go through and say, well, this says something that contradicts that. And our decision was based on one or the other.
So we haven't had any sound testing done.
Correct.
I know, but our decisions were based on, I think we made good decisions based on all of this bibliography. I think what you're saying is, we've got to, it may need to be more detailed. I don't know if it's direct or not, but it's, I don't know. I mean, it's,
Yeah, no,
because
I-
if you were to look at this body of work, I imagine there's some overlap.
Right, yeah, and that's where,
Right,
like,
so-
that's where, I mean, direct citations, I mean, there's certain parts we could definitely make direct citations from, you know, like I said, the level, sound levels, whatever we can do, and we're at the end of direct reference for the, infrasound, we removed the entire thing for us, and we added that, you know, that's definitely an easy part. I didn't know how in-depth we really wanted to get into these things with the references and whatnot, and that's where I kind of kept it generic, but if there's parts that we feel within these that need direct citations, references, things like that, then I definitely, you know, feel free to put, we can put the quotes in there, we can put the lines, whatever's needed to do that, or a reference to bibliography.
Honestly, you guys, after I read it the first time, I was like, oh, we need direct citations and it needs to be way more technical. But then I read it again and then I was like, actually, I kind of liked how simple and approachable it was for most people to read. So I don't know if we can find a happy medium between it makes everybody happy, I think, but you guys did a good job making it approachable to everybody.
Right.
It's not like a scientific magazine
Yeah.
article, you know, where
Definitely appreciate that, and that's where, like, you know, I feel free to, I definitely love to add stuff to this, and if we send it to the lawyer and he's like, no, this isn't, you know, this isn't complicated enough, this isn't, this doesn't have enough references, citations, direct stuff, direct, you know, information pulled from your,
Oh, yeah, I mean,
then your stuff, then I have no problem adding that as well. Again, I just, where I kind of threw this out is we kept this simple, approachable, as Jesse said, kind of to everybody, but I could definitely get very much more technical with this.
yeah, so let's all look at that information again and then is that where we're at with?
Yeah, I mean, if people feel that there needs to be changes, we want to double check the references or that we've made from that to what we've gotten for information.
Yeah, we'll change the thing on the decommissioning so that it's like bonded as opposed to escrowed.
Yeah, because that means the bonds maybe.
Any other changes?
My fault.
No, I just,
I think we should table it till the next meeting to.
Oh, well,
yeah.
wonder if there are any
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
I'll email you.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine by me.
um,
So you wanna table this until the next meeting?
Well, unless there's any other stuff for now, I'd still like to table it, yeah, and then we can finish going over and I can,
Yeah,
guys can email me his changes and we can,
if there's, yeah, anything else.
Resubmit another. another draft.
So it looks like we're gonna be looking at 2 more meetings instead of 1.
I think we can do them both in the same meeting.
I think we
Well,
could.
we gotta shoot it to the attorney though, right?
Why? Is that a document to go to the attorney?
Doesn't
I
say-
thought that
No, I
was
can
just-
go with the regular ordinance.
I can go with the whole ordinance,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, if we can make those changes before then,
Standard.
the next one, it goes
Okay.
with what
Yeah.
John has done, cool.
I'm wondering if it's for just some of those real, some of the numbers.
Yeah, and
That's what I was thinking, if I go through and find the numbers.
Yeah, because I mean, setback standard stuff was kind of, you know, we based that on what we thought was appropriate, but yeah, whether it comes to like the decibels and stuff like that, I
would
don't
add
think we can make a direct
Yeah.
Three
citation.
things, yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah,
We
good with that.
go through the whole thing, yeah.
Sure.
You all good? So, need a motion to table until next meeting?
So moved.
To a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on tabling? All in favor? Okay, table the support for
Facts and findings rationale.
our rationale, okay? Okay, now for citizen comments, and I think Steve had a comment, anyone else? Okay, we have 2, that's 5. He was first,
Okay.
because he went way back.
Yeah, I like to do it when you're talking about it.
I understand, but you understand where we are?
Yeah, oh yeah, I
Okay.
do. That's really sticky. You did a good piece of work, but the people who own the top of the 2 mountains we're talking about, those are rectangle pieces. They're not 20,000 acres. One of them is 100 acres. And they can say the line is wherever because they don't own the property.
What do you mean? Explain?
They're leased.
Oh, okay.
2 parcels, Elwell and Tibbetts are leased. One
That-
guy lives in Mexico, over by Rumford, and
Okay.
the other 2 brothers live in Andover. So they
A
don't
and
really
B
care what happens.
Forestry,
But the rectangle pieces on top of the mountain, I read a bunch of it, you still can buy the top of Tibbetts Mountain.
It's for sale?
And yes, it is. I've walked it. But no matter who buys it, you still have to honor the lease. You have to buy both parcels, not one. They won't split it. So it's for sale, but the lease is still good.
Is it
So-
landlocked?
I wish. But you can't, you can't wrestle with that with what this is, because that boundary line, they're gonna say it's right around the perimeter. They don't own it. It's gonna be really, really sticky to ever hold anybody's feet to the fire on that. It isn't gonna work.
Good to know.
It looks good, but it ain't gonna work.
Right.
And you're referencing which piece that we did?
It's the
PBG.
PBG.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It just, in this case, they're gonna be all over the place with you. They're leasing it.
You mean because they'll just be like, no, we're only leasing this much or something?
That's right, yeah.
Right.
It's pretty sticky if you look at their agreement.
Right,
Real sticky.
okay.
We ain't gonna be able to grab it.
Well, so so, give me a worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, they build.
Well, but I'm saying, when we're talking about the distance, the property, and the things that we're,
Well, it's not really gonna work, like the reference there with the board, the 20,000 acres, the tower is in the middle. I understood exactly what you did, it's great. But we're looking at a 100-acre piece. It's a rectangle along the top of the mountain, barely overlapping left and right, going right down the ridge of the mountain. So you can put your tower there if you want, but you really, that distance doesn't amount to much because of the size of the parcel, the way it lays. And we're not supposed to target anything in particular anyway, but it's not gonna work good for that. And I think it's 4 different parcels that are being leased from 2 different outfits. And, they don't own it. Calpine doesn't own it, Warehouser doesn't own it, it's a lease, and it's really a slippery slope on where any boundary line is gonna be. It's still for sale. Peterson's lots are still for sale, I've walked it.
And even if it sells, the lease is still honored
Yes.
to the new seller or
Yes.
new buyer?
Yep, absolutely. So it's, it's just it's more of a mess, that's all. It's just,
Gotcha.
it won't work.
Legal nightmare.
Absolutely. A lot of sidestepping. You'll never nail them down.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the insight. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard correctly what you took your vote on. Was it just on the health question, or was it
Correct.
also on property value guarantees?
Just the help.
Okay, I think that Brad is really on point on this. And Becky's backing that up with saying your ordinance is 250 feet. I don't think any of these issues would come into effect unless it gets voted down and now they want to go up. And I think that you're muddying the waters by putting it on the personal value guarantee, putting that in there. I really think that it's much cleaner because people are going to misunderstand that. Even what you've written here, to the point where they're going to say, well, gee, those people over on East Twitchell Pond Road, they're protected from, their property values are protected under this. Well, they're not. And so, you're going to look at it, people are going to look at it many different ways, thinking, well, there is some guarantee there, so what are they complaining about? Well, I think it's very misleading, and I think it's hard to explain. I think it's easier to explain if the question comes up at the hearing. I think it's easier to explain why you didn't put it in versus why you put it in. I think you can say because our ordinance, if this gets passed and it's 250 feet, it's not going to affect property values on East Twitchell Pond Road or whatever, or health issues won't, because our setbacks are so far that it's not going to be an issue. So we protected it in another way.
Right.
Right.
I think that's much easier to explain than what you're trying to do now, even though you took a valiant try at it. I can just see that being very confusing and in the explanation become even more confusing.
And Steve just added another confusion.
Right, that one there's kind of a common thing because most of these sites are on people's lands where they have a lease. When energy facility doesn't, you know, what they'll do when they come with a permit, you'll see their boundaries, for lots of different reasons, but the one in Milton, we already know what the facility boundaries are, and, you know, and we've known for a couple of years, because they had to kind of put it out there, but those leases have been around for 3 or 4 years, and then within that lease, they define the boundary of the wind energy facility and what they propose.
Within, yeah, the
Right.
lease, or-
Right.
And I can tell you that Dennis, myself, and Norm went to Carthage, and we talked with the folks at Carthage. And the person who owns the company that owns that facility, believe it or not, by Ripley, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, is in the dredging business worldwide, worth $1 gazillion. And he bought every acre of land. He went off and he bought the acreage. In fact, I think you went and talked to one of the people who wanted to sell his property, and the guy said no, because he wanted the price that the lady got for 400 or 100 acres or some other thing, and he had the 2 or 3 or 4 acres, and you talked to him, and he was a real, and that's why I said he could have been an issue and a problem. But the bottom line is that guy actually went off and bought the property. So
But that's rare, that's rare.
I'm sure it is. This is not normal.
It was a bait and switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Was it
It's a
Cashman?
it's a dredge with a barge company in Boston. It's Cashman's.
Cashman, yeah.
Right, and they also own the one that's it's Patriot Renewal,
Patriot,
which
yeah.
is in Woodstock.
Right.
But in the case of Carthage, what they did is they went in initially and they asked, they negotiated leases with people on their land. Then once they got their approvals, they came back and said, gee, we've offered way too many contracts to too many people, and we can't do this way, but we'll buy your land. So this $50,000 piece of land, we're gonna give you $150,000. That $1 million you thought you were gonna get over 20 years isn't happening. So that's what they did, is they came back in after the
Gotcha.
fact
All right.
and bought the land because they got their approvals, and now they said, well, we can't pay you that much anymore.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Bait and switch. Unbelievable. Any other comments from the public? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
There's
Oh,
one.
Joe.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, first of all, I agree with you guys about the subjectiveness of the health issues. I think that's probably something that's just too complicated. But I disagree with the part about the PVG. I wrote to you, Larry, about, I have a certified relocation professional,
Yep.
and I submitted some verbiage there. And I think if you're gonna submit your thing, then we should also submit the Montville thing to see if that was illegal, that passes legal, whatever, and maybe mine too, just to see what their opinions are on this.
Your stuff, by the way, Jill, is excellent stuff. And that's what the individual property owner would be dealing with the company. That's why this thing is a lot easier to understand, because now it is not in the body of the ordinance. It then is a requirement that you have to have an agreement. And all the stuff that you talked about enters into the picture of getting the agreement. This is the appraiser, and if you have an attorney dealing with the attorney, and if the company wants a separate appraiser, they can have a separate appraiser. All those things get hashed out, but it's a property owner by property owner.
And it's stipulated that they pay for that.
Well,
legal
and
fee,
it's
so
all-
I don't have to hire a lawyer to say.
No,
this guy's-
my point in doing this was that this is an application process. And in the application process, you have to identify who they are, and then you have to, as a condition of getting a permit, have an agreement with them.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think this is.
And
really-
so all the stuff that you talked about now becomes an individual basis to discuss between the property owner and the company with the appraisers and the attorneys involved.
Okay, so all I'm asking is if you're gonna submit yours to the attorney, shouldn't we also submit the Montville wordage and maybe my word, just so that they can review and see different scenarios? I mean,
What do
that's
you
my
folks
request, is
think?
that you submit a number of different suggestions as opposed to just one.
I haven't seen what Jill wrote.
I have it right here.
Okay, yeah.
Just by chance.
Yeah,
Can you give it to
Yeah.
him and email it to all of us? And
I
then-
certainly will.
'cause
yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
do that with reading.
And I mean, we talked before about having a real estate professional, and I did real estate for a number of years. I had my certification as a relocation professional. So I dealt with big corporations trying to assess value is what it is. Because you're trying to put a value on something at this point and then another point. And when you get this submission that I give you, it stipulates before, at the end, that it will be in accordance with some other properties that are not affected by the windmills. So any valuation would be assessed just like any other property that isn't affected by the windmills. So in other words, if property values went up by 10%, windmills, no windmills, that's the valuation differential. So I'm just asking that perhaps.
Well, as I said, I thought that was a great way to do it. It's just that I didn't want to get into the weeds in the ordinance
And I'm
itself,
not a
because
lawyer
then that would
either.
become a problem.
So I think maybe the lawyer should be the one to decide how complex or how not complex it should be. I think the Montville ordinance is very well written. I think it's very explicit, and it seemed to have passed, obviously. So, I mean, are we not as intelligent as Montville? I mean, can we not understand what Montville can understand? I mean, really, you guys are saying it's too complex. Give the voters a chance.
To the voters.
Give the voters a chance.
We've
to
already had
decide that.
experience with it.
Okay, well, that's just my.
I mean, the complex issue. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is one kind, maybe, and I appreciate that, Joe. Why reinvent the wheel? So if Montville passes, it's a good ordinance, they have a justification or they have criteria from maybe a legal opinion from their attorney. That should be available as a public record, I would imagine, or that criteria. Maybe that would be shared by them to us as another document to help push this along a little bit, and with our attorney.
I wouldn't make any assumption that something has been reviewed by an attorney just because another town has it as an
Well, exactly.
Because I've called someone, like with Denmark and stuff before, we went down the road of a survey and to find out whether something was challenged or not. So you can't don't make assumptions that something has been
Right.
legally reviewed or that it's been challenged. You need to call the town and get some history from town manager. Town manager is a good way to do that.
Or submit to the attorney. and see what-
No, just call the town manager of Montville. You can find out if it's been legally reviewed or not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you need.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it simple.
And the other thing too to keep in mind is that, you know, Denmark or Montville or whoever they might not have been appropriate sites for windmills or something, and, you know, so whatever they wrote didn't really make a difference because no one wanted to put a windmill there anyway. Just an aside.
Does anybody have any objection if we include Jill's, if she emailed them to Kim and the Montville, and let the attorney come up with a place to review and things to review and then decide? I'm not sure it's gonna sway him one way or the other. Kind of thing.
I'm not sure what the language between the three would matter. I think it's the concept of it. I think if you said what you had, Larry, that's what we're looking for. Is what's he judging on this concept of this? And then you can leave the rest of it as far as actual wording to another day.
Mhm.
I would agree with that.
Anyone else?
I'm good with submitting yours, and I would be curious to find out if Montville's was legally reviewed or not. Because I don't think we need to send that to the lawyer. I'd just be curious if they had some sort of legal.
Although if we send it to
Right,
them,
exactly.
it costs us substantially less money because then it's.
A phone call's a whole lot less money.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can reach out to Montville and find out for us if it was legally reviewed.
$250 or $300 an hour.
Yeah. 10-cent phone calls good.
Make a
I
motion
move to adjourn.
adjournment. Second. All in favor? Okay, we're adjourned, folks.